Rui Xara. Did I say it properly?
Yeah, Xara.
Rui Xara. That's the way it looks like it's spelled.
It's the way I tell it to Siri on the iPhone so she can find my sister.
You say what? Rui?
No, Sandra Xara.
Ah.
But it's Xara in Portuguese.
So Siri can't speak Portuguese either.
No, Siri can't speak Portuguese.
What was the Portuguese word you were teaching me? Let me see. Pintelo. That's because I was saying it's
hair.
like a dick hair further.
It's exactly a dick hair.
So a pintelo is, how do you say it in Portuguese?
Pintelho.
Pintelho. That's dick hair in Portuguese.
That's dick hair in
That's
Portuguese. And we also use
I feel
it
like I leave this country victorious.
Yeah. I hope you do.
So, thank you for, again, well, congratulations on putting on the first successful comedy festival in Portugal.
The first international comedy festival. There are other comedy festivals in Portugal, but not with the foreign comedians, you know. Maybe they bring one or two from Brazil, but it has never been done something with the night completely in English, as I did this time in Porto.
I loved it, man. The theater, the Sada
beautiful.
Bandeira.
Yeah.
The theater is absolutely beautiful.
You actually make it sound better, you know. It's more, I don't know, romantic when you say Sada Bandeira than Sada Bandeira. It's
Sada Bandeira.
yeah.
And there goes a helicopter overhead. The theater, so that's like I'm staying really close to the river. We're going to talk about this in a second.
Yeah,
And that's like a helicopter tour that runs up and down the river.
it is.
Because I took the trolley to the beach today.
Oh, you did?
So I saw I saw the helicopter this week, but I saw that you can take a tour.
Yeah, but did you go right all the way to
I took the trolley all the way to the end, to the beach.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I walked over to the lighthouse, checked it out. It's Sunday, so there was a really lovely, this beautiful park with lots of trees.
Yeah.
Um,
Is it
They
where they have the small mini golf course?
I didn't see a mini golf course, but they were, like people selling honey and scented candles and kind of like a hippie market,
Yeah.
we would say in the States.
Yeah.
And, kind of not a flea market, more like a hippie market.
Yeah. They do that on the weekends. I don't know if it's only on Sundays or Saturdays and Sundays, but while the weather is good, we take chances with doing things outside because, as I told you, in the winter, Porto is really rainy, you know. Sometimes we have like a month and a half of always being raining, and so we try to enjoy every bit of sun we can.
So it's known as a rainy place, kind of
Yeah.
like Seattle's known as a rainy place, Portland.
Yeah.
Because this week has been nothing but blazing sunshine since I've
Yeah,
been.
and probably it's not like Seattle. I mean, I saw some American series like The Killing, you know, and it was always raining in Seattle, like every day. Here it's more in the winter, but it rains a lot in the winter. So when we get a summer like this, a late summer like this, we try to enjoy it more, you know, to do things outside.
I like the Portuguese, it's what I liked about Spain, and, you guys are, on the Iberian Peninsula. Maybe it's just this part of the world, but, we've had dinner this week at like 10 p.m., 11 p.m.
Yeah, yeah.
We've gotten home every day at like 4 or 5 in the morning.
Yes.
And the thing I like the most about Portugal so far, I mean, you and the food and the people, of course, but you are on Tom Rhodes' Hours.
Yeah, and you were on Rui Xara's hours also, so I think it was nice that we had but it's not that everybody lives like that, you know. We can do that because of what we do for living in comedy, right? We don't have to wake up in the morning and go to the crowded train, but lots of people do that still, you know. It's a city like any other, you know. But I like that, and the difference is that as you saw the night you performed, or was it the first night that we went with Rafi to that restaurant that is open until 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And you can have the exact same food you would have at dinner in a regular.
That's where I had my first Francesina. How do you say it?
Francesinha.
And so that's like kind of one of the dishes that Porto's famous for.
Especially from Porto. It's a sandwich.
It's a steak sandwich with an
Yeah.
egg on it
Yeah.
and cheese.
And the
And it looks like
secret,
it's sitting in tomato soup, but it's not tomato
it's
soup.
not. It's
Because I hate tomato soup, and that whatever that sauce is, it was delicious.
it's a sauce, and when they do the contests to see which one is the best francesinha, probably the sauce is what decides, because the true sauce, the original sauce, is made by cooking it very slowly, and you kind of dissolve meat in that sauce and cheese, so it stays kind of thick, you know. It's a thick sauce, and it's really tasty, and you know the competitions are always quite how do you say that?
Fierce?
Yeah, because
Competitive?
everybody competitive, because everybody says they have the best sauce. So this, it's kind of like in Italy, the some people say it's the basis of the pizza, and other people say it's the sauce.
Yeah.
In Portugal, everybody knows it's the sauce that makes the difference. I mean, you can put not so good meat inside. If the sauce is good, the francesinha is good.
Well, really enjoyed Porto, and I've learned so many things. And you're actually from Braga, but you're a very proud Porto person.
Yeah.
And I looked up all this information about Porto and Portugal before I came, and I made some really great jokes. I like to write like 5 minutes of material at least on whatever country that I'm visiting. And I know that the 1755 Lisbon earthquake was one of the most devastating tragedies ever to happen in human history. And I learned in Porto that the people in Porto hope another devastating earthquake hits Lisbon again.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize you guys have this kind of L.A. San Francisco, rivalry like New York and Boston and.
I didn't know it was between New York and Boston and LA.
Well, that's kind of a sports thing. But as far as cities go, San Francisco hates L.A. and L.A. is unaware that there's even a problem.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
it's a little bit like that. But I always thought that it was like between New York and LA, you know. That's the idea we have here, that New York is like Porto and LA is like Lisbon, you know, with the more sunny and where everything is, the studios, the TVs, everything.
Right.
And but I didn't know. But we don't really wish Lisbon to disappear, of course. But
Of course,
that's-
we exaggerate in
Yeah,
comedy.
but-
I did like doing. I flew in.
But the way you did the jokes, it was great. And I was listening to you. We had been like for 2 days together before. I told you some things about the country.
Yeah.
And the way you used that to do your jokes, it was absolutely magnificent. So it's another proof, not that I needed one more, that you are a hell of a comedian. So
Thanks, man.
I'd like to tell you that in your
Officially.
in your own podcast.
Thank you, brother. And that goes a long way on this program.
Yeah.
When you compliment the host. You thought we were having regular conversations, but I was making mental notes.
Yes, you were.
Of things to talk about.
Some of the
But I'm very
things-
fascinated by places like, and I think it's funny that Porto, the people of Porto, are known as the intestine eaters, the
Yeah.
tripe eaters.
Yeah.
And you told me that it was because they used to give the good cuts of meat to the explorers
Yeah.
hundreds of years ago. So I made the joke that Porto is known as the intestines eaters because you gave the nice cuts of meat to the explorers, but it's been a few hundred years since you had explorers, so maybe you can have the nice cuts of meat now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Try a chicken breast.
It was a good joke.
You don't need to eat guts and livers anymore.
And you have tried nice pieces of meat also, right?
The food here has been absolutely incredible.
That first restaurant I took you to with the I don't know if we say maturated meat.
Mature beef.
Matured beef,
Yeah.
yeah.
That place was very artistic. What was the name of that restaurant?
Moo.
M-U-U.
Like a cow does, the sound a cow does. Moo.
Yeah, but in the United States, we spell moo M-O-O.
Oh, okay.
So I guess that's the Portuguese
In
accent.
Portuguese with the
Your
you.
cow has a Portuguese accent
Yeah,
with
yeah.
with more of a U sound.
Yeah. But the we say tripes in English. The
We
intestines.
say tripe, but I mean again, it was a word I had to look up.
Okay, that joke was great, and people understood that you showed a point that nobody in Portugal has ever thought of. You know, like okay, now we don't have these covers anymore, so why do we keep eating these?
Why do we keep eating the worst cuts of the?
But I think you also have the answer for that, right? Because you tried the dish and it's really good, isn't it?
Those were the best intestines I've ever eaten.
Yeah.
It was really incredible. You've been such a great host. I'm grateful that you, Rui Xara, are the person who first brought me to Portugal, and you have not let me paid for one single meal since I've been here. You said like last night we were having a conversation with Barry Ferns, the
Yeah.
British comedian, and you said, "Do you think things are expensive here?" And I said, "I don't know. I haven't been able to pay for anything."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it was really nice.
Thank you, but it's really a pleasure for me. I wouldn't do it if I didn't think you deserved it, and that I could afford it, of course. Because, but it's really an honor, and it is very important for me that you have accepted to be on this show. As you know, and I know, we have known each other like for the last 2 years. We only talked on Facebook, on Messenger, and WhatsApp, and things like that. But then I went to check who you were, and I remembered that I already knew you from the old days, you know, and you are kind of like me. You choose to have a life of doing comedy on stage. That's your thing. That's what you like to do, stand-up comedy, right? And
Yep.
you've had other experiences, and that's my thing also. You know, you like to help other guys. You don't mind doing small gigs for the fun of doing them, and I'm like that also. You know, so I found lots of similarities between me and you along the conversations we were having. Of course, there are different things also, you know, but that was good because I found out that in a country like the United States, which is like the mecca of the comedy in the world nowadays, there is someone that thinks like me and works on Rui Xara's hours also, schedule. Like you say Tom Rhodes, and I'll give you are older than me, not much older, but a little bit older than me. So we'll call it Tom Rhodes schedule. Schedule, right? Schedule.
We can say Portuguese hours. I like it.
Yeah.
But like, there's so many good meals you've taken me to. Like, it was a really smart, cool thing that you did. You did a great festival. You should be really proud of yourself. And,
Thank you.
And this is an achievement you will have for the rest of your life. I mean, that this great 2 night festival. The first night was in Portuguese. You had Rafina Bastos.
Yeah.
uh,
Vitor Sarro.
headlined it, and we got him here because my relationship with you, and then
Yeah.
my relationship with Rafi. You
was-
asked me, is it possible to get Rafi
Yeah.
when you heard him on my podcast? And I just asked him the next time we were hanging out, and then the next thing you know, we're in Portugal together. So 1 night in Portuguese, 1 night in English. I was headlining the English night.
Yeah.
Beautiful theater, Sada Bandiera. The woman who managed the place, I was asking her the history. Built in 1856.
Yeah.
It's a circular round theater with 1, 2, 3 balconies.
Yes.
And she said it was for show horses, would come in and prance and that kind of thing. So, like, super rich Portuguese people in 1856
Yes.
wearing white gloves, looking at fancy show horses dance around. And then what, like 1909, it became a regular theater or something like that. So just really great. You can feel the history, man. Like you can feel the ghosts in there. Fortunately, ghosts like me, so I don't have a problem with ghosts. So that was so great. But the other cool thing about just pulling off the festival and getting all these great acts here, you did a really smart thing with your friends around the city who owned restaurants. You got them to
Support to be
to support,
sponsors.
sponsor, pay for a meal for the group of comedians.
Yeah.
So it was like so cool. All these different restaurants and all this different Portuguese food, and that pork thing I had was
Yeah.
fucking amazing.
That's typical from Braga, from the Braga region.
What's that called?
Rojões.
Man,
It's really good. It's
take
it's,
a bucket of that.
It's stewed like you put the meat in wine and garlic, like for I don't know 2-3 days, until it starts almost like not decomposing, but you understand it. So the meat absorbs the wine, and then you stewed it, like for 2 hours or 3.
Yeah.
And it stays really really tasty and very soft, right? It's you don't have to chew almost, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things that I enjoyed in the festival also was that the fact that in your night, the night you were the headliner, we had 3 guys in Portuguese guys doing stand up in English. That's also something like groundbreaking here,
Andre
The Freitas.
De Freitas.
Yeah, the girl.
He's 24 years old.
Yeah, he lives in
and,
London.
and he lives in London. And we were talking. It was like
He was like you.
it was
when you
like
were
talking
young.
to my younger self.
Yeah,
His chin is a little, and I had an incredibly great chin back then. I think his chin is in jawline is maybe just a little better than even mine was.
yeah,
But like hanging out with him and talking to him, I felt like I was talking to my 24-year-old self.
yeah.
You know, he's got the long hair,
He's got the style.
skinny. Girls like him.
Mm-hmm.
His heart's into the.
You,
He loves the comedy.
You were well succeeded in your youngster years with girls.
Yes. I was relatively popular.
Relatively popular.
Yeah.
Okay.
So really great group of guys. Great festival. Barry Ferns, British
Barry
guy.
Friends is good. Really good.
Good. Great show.
Loved him on stage. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go to his comedy club in London. People tell me that it's the best comedy club. Have you ever performed there
I
before?
performed there. Yeah, we
At-
talked about it.
In Angels.
Yeah, you heard the story at dinner the other night.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was another comedy club, not
No,
his.
no. I did a set there when I was there in 2014.
And it was
Because
his...
I heard it was his club.
Oh,
We told the story at dinner the other night.
I'm sorry. I missed that.
I went and did a 10-minute guest set because I heard it was such a great club, and some drunk moron heckled me the whole time. And this actress, Natalia Tena, who was in the Harry Potter movies, she was on Game of Thrones. She's in my favorite episode of Black Mirror, which is the Christmas episode that had John Hamm in it. She plays this like crazy woman who kills a guy. So I had no idea who this woman was, but she's attractive. Oh, and she's also the lead singer of a band called Molotov Cocktail. Super cool woman.
Okay.
And attractive. And she got up in this guy's face and said, "You're being a douche. This guy's a performer. He's great, and you're embarrassing all of us, and you need to shut up now and show respect to the performer." I mean, like she was going to fight him.
Okay.
An attractive woman, like got in this guy's face like a man, and like put her finger in the guy's face. I'm like, it was the most remarkable thing I've ever seen, and her and I became friends because of that. And then she was on my podcast, and so I told Barry I need to go back and give that club another shot.
Yeah, and it was great. Barry was telling me that one of the things we can also do, which is good for me, there are lots of Portuguese living in London, is to set up a show and a comedy night in his comedy club, but in Portuguese.
You need to tap into this Portuguese market all over the world. Sydney, Australia's got loads of Portuguese.
Yeah, I performed in London last year for the Portuguese community, but it was in a Portuguese restaurant, so it seemed like I was here. Even the drunk guys were the same. Yeah, but I would like to do that because doing it in a comedy club is different from what we are used. As I told you, we don't have one single comedy club in Portugal. We have bars that work like comedy clubs. I took you to one of them, Cru in Famalicão. That city, you can't pronounce the name, right?
That was a great room. I really enjoyed that show.
But it's not exactly a comedy club because on the other nights it has music only. It
feels like a cool rock and roll bar.
It is. So I
hope they put my poster up with the rock posters.
Yeah, they will. They took a bad. They chose a bad picture of you, and I'm sorry for that.
Oh yeah, on the poster there. Oh Jesus!
Yeah,
hope they don't use that poster.
It wasn't my choice. It was their choice. So they went maybe to the Facebook and picked a random one. But anyway, how is it possible that you've been around the world? How is it possible that in Ulaanbaatar that there's a comedy club and in Portugal you don't have one single comedy club? So
that's pretty remarkable.
I'm trying to fight that also, but
well, the weather's so good here. People are surfing.
Yeah.
I mean, comedy's really for the damaged and the wounded. Maybe your people are just too happy for comedy.
But you also have comedy clubs in the Philippines and in the...
Not a good one.
Yeah, but they exist.
I know, yeah. In Florida, I'm just joking. Yeah. But yeah, no, you got... And Portugal's famous for the fado music, which is like heartbreaking, sad music. So there
Yeah.
are sad people in
I
Portugal.
thought of an idea last time when we were talking about fado that maybe can explain more or less what is fado. It's like if it was the blues, but born not out of Africa but out of Europe. You know, like a mix of the Spanish flamenco, you know, and it's like making. We have an expression. Fado is so down, so deep down, that we call it to make the stones of the road cry. This is a literal translation.
Wow, it's so low.
Yeah, it's so low that
Even the stones
it
cry.
would make the stones of the road cry, you know? That's the idea. But there's a new generation of fado singers that's been trying to change that and put a little bit more joy into fado. Fado is good, especially because
I
of the guitar.
found a 20 euro cent piece on the street. Yeah.
That's more like the blues. The fado would be more like I found a piece on the street. You know, it's really like the guitar is mourning. You know, mourning,
Morning, yeah.
mourning,
Yeah.
and it's good, but you can't always listen to it.
I am sad, but as long as there is ice cream, I can survive. It's like that.
More like you go up and then down. Na, 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 na. You see, it's like this, always like a vibrating. What you call that piece you use in the hospitals to see how the patient is. You know,
Oh yeah,
with the peaks. You know.
like the flatliners.
Yeah, the flatliners. Yeah. And
yeah.
it would always be going up and down.
Barometer. I don't know what you call
Yeah.
it.
No.
So let's
doesn't matter.
teach the listener some nice things about Portugal. Portugal has 1,000 recipes for cod,
Yeah.
and that was a funny thing I did on stage the other
One
night.
of the best jokes.
That I did a joke that didn't, a new joke, and it kind of fell flat, and I was imitating the audience. I said, "Don't worry, Tom, we didn't get 1,000 recipes for cod overnight. We got up to 998, and we were like, wow, what the fuck else can we do with cod? We need 2 more to round it off to 1,000." And then everybody pulled together.
Yeah.
And then you have 200-foot waves that people surf. You told me Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam.
When he comes here, he likes to go
Surfs,
surfing. Yeah, and the guy that surfed that wave, which is in Guinness, is an American, Gareth McNamara. You know, it is at least here is a very well-known surfer from the old school. He was the one that decided to go there in Nazaré. There is I don't know, like a geological thing in the ocean that creates really great waves.
You know, why are they? Because so I went out to the beach today, and they were like, 4, 5 foot, 6 foot waves.
Yeah.
What time of year do the 200-foot waves?
We'll be now in October, the late October.
So where is that? What part of the country?
In the middle of the country, north of Lisbon, like 100 kilometers, called Nazaré. And there is a kind of...
So like if you were down like on the lower part,
yeah.
it would just suck you out, right? If you could, the water going out would have to create such a huge force to make water curl up 200 feet that way.
But it's not like a typical wave, you know. It's like a massive wave, and the beach is a large beach. You can't be on the beach during that period of time, you know, during when those waves come.
So they're just slamming down.
Yeah, and lots of people. I don't know if one Brazilian guy died last year or 2 years ago, but there are. You can see footage in YouTube if you search for it.
People dying in from Portugal waves?
No, but you can see in that place the guys in the water motors, you know?
The jet skis.
The jet skis going to rescue some surfers because if they stood there like 1 minute more, they would die. Wow. There's footage of that. So it's really massive, and it's a wave. It's not like a curved wave like you see in Hawaii and in all the circuit of the world surf circuit. It's more like I don't know. Imagine like when there's an earthquake and a tsunami. More like a tsunami. It's a massive wave that goes.
Yeah.
And it's really tall, and you feel really small there. And Gareth McNamara was the first guy to surf that. I think he is the one on Guinness Book. And then it became famous, you know. It had to be in America coming here and making those waves famous, you know.
Well, it seems like almost every other year on the news in America, they'll show the waves in Portugal and crazy people surfing it. You
But
know?
when did that start? Like 5, 6 years ago.
And within
right?
the last 10 years,
Yeah,
yeah. I
because
never even knew it existed.
That's when Gervas discovered them.
Wow.
He's like
The Magellan of
yeah, he's
of
like
sex wax.
an honorary citizen of that village. You know.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to be an honorary citizen.
You are already an honorary citizen of Porto and honorary supporter of Braga.
Braga!
Yeah.
Speaking of the Guinness Book of World Records, Portugal has the Guinness Book of World Records for the world's largest omelet.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I know you guys don't think that's a big deal, but in the rest of the world, us egg eaters, we hold... Oh, listen to the church bell. I love this neighborhood you got me in.
Yeah.
That's a church bell that's several hundred years old.
Yeah, and it played 6 times, means it's 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
The last rings,
Yeah.
you know?
So if it only rings a half, it's the half-hour point,
Yeah.
right?
And then, and some of them, some
How could a
churches,
bell ring half? I'm kidding.
because they know they have special sounds for that, you know, like a quarter of an hour, half an hour, 3/4, and then a complete hour.
Okay.
It's when they ring the number of the exact hour. If it's 1 o'clock, it rings once. If it's 12 o'clock, it rings 12 times.
What's this part of town? Yeah, because we're by the river. It's this really old... It's so hilly in Porto. It's so
Yeah.
great. I'm surprised people don't have Tyrannosaurus Rex sized thighs here from climbing these hills. But I'm like in this really old part down
called-
below by the river.
It's called Miragaia, which means we are looking at Gaia. That is the other side of the river. You know, the 2 towns that gave name to Portugal. In Latin, Porto is Portus, and Gaia is Calen. So Portus, Calen, Portugal, Portugal.
Ah, so
Porto,
this is where Portugal
Gaia.
gets its name from,
This
right
is
here.
where Portugal gets his name for. It's Porto and Gaia were the main towns in Douro River on the what do you say when the river gets to the sea?
Where the river meets the sea?
Yeah.
We call that when the river meets the sea.
You don't have a special name for that?
I am sure.
In
there-
Portuguese we say foz. In the foz of the river, where Douro River meets the sea, this is like a big rock. Porto is like a big rock, a big granite
Granite.
granite rock. So it was never invaded. That's why it's called very noble, always loyal, and never invincible city of Porto. It's the
motto.
The motto of Porto. Even I told you the story of the bridge there was a few years ago. They had to destroy it so Napoleon couldn't enter the town during the Napoleon War.
I saw a plaque by the river, and it said that the bridge collapsed because so many people were trying to flee Napoleon's army.
Yeah, but they also fired some cannon balls.
Yeah, and they blew it up.
They blew it up so the Napoleon army couldn't enter the
Wow.
city. So it was like a sacrifice to save all the others that were inside.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Great history here. Like, Portugal invented the slave trade.
Yeah,
And then you were the first country to make slavery illegal. So that means you were the first country to feel guilty about it.
when you said that, I felt like, man, this is great. You heard me talking about this when it was when we were driving from Lisbon, right? I picked you up at
Yeah.
the airport, and you were absolutely tired with the jet lag and all that, and I thought you weren't paying attention to what I was
Paying
saying.
attention to everything.
And then he gets to the theater, and I thought you were nervous at the beginning before going, and then I understood you were not nervous. You were reminding in your head those stories, those new beats, right? Those new jokes to do them over there. And when I heard them, this is great, this is amazing. And that joke really worked very well. People understood because it's also an angle we never thought about, right?
You were the first ones to feel guilty.
Yeah,
about it.
it's great. That's the
We can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
We're having a hard time sleeping. Our consciences are bothering us.
But anyway, we were the first ones, and we were also the first ones to abolish the death penalty, you know?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In civilian ways, because we maintained the death penalty for military use until the revolution in 1974.
Yeah, and your revolution in 1974. So that's so interesting things. So you had a king, and then you killed him. What year was that?
1910, I think.
1910.
Yeah.
Okay. In France, they had a revolution. They killed their king, and they had a big party. In Portugal, you killed your king when he was taking the train.
Yes.
So he probably thought he was going to take a carriage to the summer palace,
Yeah.
and you guys thought, "Hey, king, we're going to save you some money. We got your train ticket." And then what? So he was stabbed on the platform? How
I
did
think
it?
he was shot. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he was shot.
Wow. And then so what? So then I didn't know. I had no idea until I was here that you had a dictator for a long time.
Yeah, like 47 years, I think.
Wow. Okay. So now as the United States is moving into a dictatorship, what should we be aware of?
Well, I don't know. I
So you
don't.
were born during the dictatorship.
Before, yes, yes,
Amazing.
but the dictator was already dead. It was the last 3 years of the dictatorship with another guy, and it didn't last long. You know, that's one thing of the dictatorships. Usually, when you kill the main dictator, the others won't do it the same way. You know, so I was
So
born.
did the dictator just died?
More or less. He fell out of a chair.
Fell out of a chair.
Yeah, of a chair in '69, I think, and it didn't. He stood with some. It had consequences that only showed later. You know, he beaten with his head on the floor, so he was pulled apart later on, and finally he ended up dying. He was replaced before dying by another guy from his, from his friends, from the guys in those days government. But that's also a Guinness record, the
Longest dictator?
dictator.
Wow.
Yeah,
Portugal, you guys are just
and I was
taking
going,
up all the pages in the Guinness book.
yeah, and I was going to say something else that but I forgot it. It passed my mind. What?
About the dictator. Because that's so interesting to me. Because 1974, you think of Europe, and especially for me, like soccer, and there was so many cool people. George Best was playing,
Yeah.
and all these sexy European guys, and the Portugal's always had a great team. It's just amazing to think that up until '74, you guys had a dictatorship.
Yeah, we did.
In my mind, you were just this open European society.
No, and when the dictatorship ended in '74, when the revolution was made, one of the main characters that had a huge influence there was the American ambassador in Portugal. He was a guy called Frank Carlucci. I don't know if you ever heard that name. He was popular here in Portugal, of course. He died, I think, last year, and people were afraid that we would become a communist country, and the CIA had it all ready to do like an invasion,
Of
because
Portugal.
of
Wow.
Portugal. And Carlucci was the one that talked to a Portuguese former president called Mário Soares, who died last year. He was very old, 92 or 93 years old. And Mário Soares told him, "Don't worry, this won't become a communist country. We have things figured out." So Carlucci calmed down the American government. I think in those days it was Henry Kissinger, You remember Henry Kissinger?
Yeah, Nixon's
Yeah.
Secretary of Defense.
Yeah,
What
he
was
he was a
exactly?
Secretary of State or a
Secretary of State. That's it.
something like that, and he told him, "Don't worry, because Portugal won't become a communist country." So during 2 years there was a period of some turbulence here in Portugal, but then things finally calmed down. And we didn't become a communist country, as Carlucci has said. I'm telling you a brief part of the history. It's more
Yeah, no, it's
complicated
good.
than this. But once again, America had a huge influence, especially that guy, because he could understand that we were not going to go on a civil war. But for a few days, people were afraid of that. And that's the difference between nobody being killed, as it happened, and a massive killing could have happened if we went into a civil war for political reasons. So it was avoided, and luckily and gladly for all of us, we did a cool transition.
Yeah.
Of course, some people would have preferred it another way. I know some of them. They are my friends. I'm also a quite left-wing guy. But I think it's always better when people don't die. And we are a cool country nowadays. Of course, there's still corruption and things like that, like everywhere. Oh, I know what I was going to say. It was about the thing you said that America could become a dictatorship now. As I told you, I do a very funny thing that I don't know if it will ever have an impact in outside Portugal. I do a joke about Donald Trump every day ever since he was
Oh
elected.
yeah, on Twitter. You've been
No,
to
in Facebook, on
on
Facebook,
Facebook.
on
Okay.
Facebook, yeah. So it started as a joke. I was not thinking of doing that, but the day he was elected, I posted a joke on Facebook that was like, a wild translation would be like, "Here comes a storm Trump's," like something like that. Doing
Storm Trump, like Hurricane Trump.
a hurricane Trump, yeah. And I did the hashtag one Trump joke a day during 4 years. This was the hashtag. So the next day when I wake up, this was in the night, when I wake up the next day, I had comments saying, "Oh, good, you are going to do a joke about Donald Trump every day. That's cool, man." Like or six comments like this. And I thought, man, this is not what I was thinking. I was thinking that he was going to do at least one silly thing every day during these 4 years. But okay, since you want it, I'll do it. And I've done one joke every day ever since, never missed a day. So now it's going to be like 2 years now. Which
Yeah.
day is it? The day after tomorrow?
Almost two. I think 1 month will be 2 years.
Wasn't it in October that he was elected?
No,
was-
beginning of November.
No, 9 of November, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be 2 years the next month, and I
Yeah,
never.
it was 11/9 because people flip it.
Oh yeah,
9/11.
yeah, 9/11 and 11/9, the catastrophic dates. Yeah. So I've been doing that, and I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but probably a book, and then I'll see if the Americans also have interest in listening to what a Portuguese comedian has to say about your president.
It's a great idea,
Yeah.
and you're known for it in Portugal. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, and then also I thought it was really cool that I landed in Lisbon. You picked me up, and 1 hour and 15 minutes after my plane landed, I was on national television in Portugal
Yes.
promoting your festival.
Yeah.
And you told me I was going to have to do television right off the thing, so I brought like a towel with me, and I had my change of clothes.
It was
I
great washing.
poured
that.
water in my hair
Yeah.
in the parking garage of the Lisbon airport, dried off, put my contacts in
Yes.
your rear view mirror in your car. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I learned a lot about how to travel with you, because you do that all year long, and I'm not a usual traveler. I am, but inside Portugal by car.
Yeah.
As I told you, I love this country, and I love to know every bit of it, the interior, which I will have much pleasure to show you in another visit that you do to us. And I was watching you, and I was thinking, man, this guy really knows what he has to do when he travels, and you have to, because only this year, how many countries have you already visited, Tom?
Oh my God, this year? Shit, I don't know. Wow. Maybe 20 this year.
Yeah, and it's your first time in Portugal, right?
Yeah. There's that sound. See, I told you.
The seagulls.
See, it's at around sunset every day. The seagulls go crazy here by
Yeah,
the river,
Yeah.
which is really cool. Oh, and I love this place, this vintage bar.
Yeah, like
It's a big antique store, like in an old parking garage or warehouse building,
yeah.
and it's got a restaurant and bar in it. It's really cool. So
You talked about the suitcase they have there, right?
oh my God, these beautiful old, like you've seen these Louis Vuitton suitcases, and I've seen used ones that they still sell for like $1,000 that are like old. You'll see them in Paris, but Portugal, obviously, very skilled leather craftsmen.
Yeah.
These were these beautiful, thick leather, old school suitcases, like the big kind of, not like a trunk, but like, proper big ass suitcases that people used to travel with. And they had
Yeah.
the travel stickers on them.
Yes.
So it was cool to see, like, a hotel in Cairo and Buenos Aires, and, one was Jerusalem. I took pictures of the old stickers.
Yeah.
There's just these beautiful old. If I had a bigger home and more money, I would have bought a bunch of them. I think they're awesome.
Yeah.
But so let's cover a few things. Like, it's interesting that a little country like Portugal once owned half of the New World
Yes.
when the European powers were floating all over the world and grabbing shit. And you guys grabbed the biggest part of South America,
Brazil, yes.
and Rafina Bastos, who I'm friends with,
Yes.
the Brazilian comedian, told me that Portugal is obsessed with Brazilian culture, but it doesn't work the other way around.
Yeah, we
That in
are.
Brazil, they don't really give a shit what's going on in Portugal.
Well, they don't give a shit until they come here to perform, you know.
Or want a
like-
job or something.
Yeah, like now they have a big crisis. Today it's the election in Brazil, and they
Oh
can,
my God, yeah.
it can go a little bit like you in America with the
Banana
guy,
Rama or whatever his name
yeah,
is.
Bolsonaro.
Bolsonaro.
He's more fascist than Donald Trump is. You
Yeah.
know, he's really a sexist guy. He says women shouldn't earn as much money as men.
Homophobic, yeah, he's
Homophobic. He is a piece of shit in the real meaning of it. But Brazilians are starting to come to Portugal again because things are hard in Brazil. So the problem is that in the early days, when after Brazil became independent, there was a lot of immigration from Portugal to Brazil, and the people that migrated there were poor people, you know, and they always worked in like the brasseries
Yeah.
where you do the bread,
Yeah.
and they always had mainly two names, Manuel and Joaquin. So they did a lot of jokes about that. But when they started learning more about the Portuguese culture, they are interested by it. The problem is that they have a huge production of telenovelas, you know, like
Yeah, the soap operas.
soap
yeah.
operas, and they sell it to Portugal, and it's always playing on prime time in some channels, you know, and that makes the difference. We don't produce mostly nothing or anything in Portugal in terms of cinema and series, you know. We are a very small country, 10 million people, less than live in LA, right? So that's one of the main reasons, and the Brazilian music usually gets here very easily, and we don't get to do the same thing there. But that has one very simple explanation. We understand everything Brazilians say. They don't understand what we say. It's a bit like you and the English, you know? I heard a few years ago there was an English film called Henry V, I think, which had to be subtitled in the United States because of the way it was spoken. You know, so I think there are some similarities between Portugal and Brazil and England and the United States.
Ah, that makes sense.
You know,
Yeah, and then they broke free also. They're independent.
yeah, and the American culture is all over England. I've been to London and I've seen that. Does English
everywhere.
does English culture
China, they're into hip hop.
Yeah.
Japan, they're into hip hop.
and does English culture enters the United States in the same way?
A little bit.
But not in the same way, not in the same amount, right?
Yeah.
But England is a very huge country in Europe, an important country. They produce a lot of things. The pop culture, it started probably in London, in Manchester, and things like that, right?
Pop culture? What,
Yeah,
with,
like the Beatles and all
oh,
those
they were
things.
Liverpool.
Yeah, Liverpool, I know, but the
Yeah, but they
Beatles-
got the fuck out of Liverpool once they made any money.
Yeah, I know, but they are British, you know. The Rolling Stones are English, the Led Zeppelin are English, Deep Purple are English. All that culture started in.
Well, we got Pearl Jam and Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah, but that's now, and thank God you have, because I love them both, but especially Red Hot Chili Peppers. One of my dreams would be to meet Flea personally. You know, the
I told
best
you, I
the
live
best
close
player.
to Fairfax High School, where
Yeah.
he went to high school with. That makes sense about the Brazilian novellas. I actually read a story a year or two ago about how important the stories are. That it actually lifted women up in Brazil.
Yeah,
That the through the storylines, the women talked about birth control and contraception and like their not like domestic violence
yeah,
and
homosexuality.
homosexuality,
The first time-
women standing up for themselves, women
Yeah.
demanding equal rights, and that the importance of those Brazilian novellas kind of changed Brazilian culture and the way women thought of themselves because they had been held down for so long.
Yeah, they also had a dictatorship during too many years, a military dictatorship.
Yeah.
And I remember a few
Everybody
years
loves
ago.
one of those. They're always a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that's very Latin America, right? The military dictatorship. I don't think there was even one country in South America that didn't have a military dictatorship, right? But I remember like 3 or 4 years ago,
Suriname.
the first time, maybe Suriname, the first time two women kissed was in a novella at prime time, and that generated a big discussion in Brazil if it should have been shown or not, you know. But that was groundbreaking. So yeah, there's also that part that we sometimes forget about novellas, even in Portugal, because when we started watching Brazilian novellas in Portugal, we were still a kind of not very developed country, you know,
Yeah.
in terms of mentality, because of the dictatorship. When you have a dictatorship that lasts more than 50 years, it leaves marks. You know, before 1974, we didn't have Coca-Cola in Portugal.
Wow.
It's true. But people in the colonies in Africa drank Coca-Cola.
Wow.
It was only in Portugal, in the metropolis, that it was not allowed, you know?
Wow.
So there were some funny things. You couldn't carry a lighter in the street.
Get the fuck out.
Yeah,
Why?
you should, because it was forbidden. During a period, free people having a conversation in the middle of the street was forbidden. It was
Because
considered,
that's considered like a gathering.
yeah, like a
a
gathering
riot,
against
protest.
yeah, exactly.
Wow.
This was all in the law.
So Portugal. So you also in Africa you had Angola and Mozambique.
Yeah, and free.
That's
other
another great reason to go to antique stores when you travel. Like in that vintage bar antique place, they had old books on Angola and stuff. So I got to flip through and see that. I used to end each episode of my podcast with a song.
Yes.
Like just whatever I was into, or if it was related to something we had talked about in the conversation. I'm really into music, so I really enjoyed picking out songs, and
It's always you who chooses?
it was always me. It's my podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was all my
No,
taste.
I thought you would
I was trying to
ask.
turn my listeners on to songs that I love, and there's a Bob Dylan song I love called Mozambique,
Yeah.
which I would have ended this episode on had Libsyn not told me they were going to penalize me if I played songs. So
Oh.
anyway, I had to go through all the old episodes and cut off the songs and shit. So
Oh.
anyway, so someone
It's a pity because I didn't know that song, and you taught it
I'd
to
like
me
to spend some time in Mozambique.
Yeah, you taught me that song during these days. It's been a great honor to meet you, Mr. Tom Rhodes. You are. I'd like to say this. I suppose you are ending the podcast, right?
Soon?
So
Yeah.
I would like to tell you that, and you will understand it more or better than the audience that will listen to this. You are a stand-up guy.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you recognizing me and bringing me. You said that I'm the godfather of your
You
festival
are the
now.
godfather of my
So
festival.
you said I can return every
You
year. if I
will
want?
return next year, and
That's
then
great.
we'll see what.
So
we
hey,
do.
listeners, if you're looking for a vacation
Yeah.
next year, come to Port. So it's going to be the first week in November next year.
Yes, I'm going to try to make it because this time is worst because people come from the vacation, the lesson starts, so people spend a lot
Yeah.
of money in books and things like that, and propines, what you pay in school, the money you pay,
Oh, the tuition.
the tuition. So in November, early November will be better. But anyway, you will always come back whenever you want because you will be very welcome. And this is a lovely country that you need to get to know better because there are so many things I didn't show you that when I'll show them to you, you'll say, Rui, why didn't you show me this the last time? Because we didn't have the time.
Yeah.
It's the only excuse.
Well, it's cool, and I
It's the only
focused
reason.
mostly on Porto this time.
And we
this
have
visit. It's,
I'm sorry. We had one very important thing at the festival that I wanted to be recorded.
yeah,
All the people that attended the second night were Portuguese.
that's
The two-
right.
the
I was thinking there
200
was going to be English
No,
tourists and
they
shit.
were Portuguese.
It was
So
all Portuguese English speakers.
you had 2 Brazilians and the rest were Portuguese
Yeah.
in almost 200 people. So one of the victories I get of this festival, of this first edition, is that we can do stand up in English in Portugal because we have a public for that. You know,
Yeah, and they
we
were.
have an audience for that.
And I was telling you after the show that it was amazing because the things that I got every time I did a callback.
Mm-hmm.
Not only did it get a great laugh, it got an applause break.
Yeah.
It was like the things that I was worried about, people who English is not their first language.
Mm-hmm.
So like nuanced things and callbacks and little little witticisms and little throwaway lines that I did, they fucking loved it.
Yeah, they did.
And like better than even an English speaking audience. They like it was almost like they recognized the craft in doing something like a callback
Yeah.
to something like, oh wow, oh I see what he did there. That was very clever, and we will be clapping now.
But we have a good culture of stand-up in Portuguese, you know. Me and other guys, we've been doing this like for 20 years. I was one of the first. Before me, Aldo Lima, that you met.
Yeah.
The guy in the first nine, like 21, 22 years ago. So we've been trying really hard. So this is another step, you know. But comedy is okay in Portugal. My problem is always that thing I told you, that the televisions are in Lisbon. So if you want to do something and get nationwide famous, you have to go to Lisbon. And I'm trying to change that and put Porto in the map, you know, and make things happen here, because you have a kind of a tour all over Northern Europe where you are going after, in Norway.
There's
and
gigs
Sweden.
all over Europe. I
Yeah.
never even knew there were gigs in Portugal.
And always in the north of Europe, never in the south. You don't do Portugal and Spain, and even France is like Paris and not much more, right?
Yeah.
So it's the southern countries that have a different attitude. Like you said, we have the sun and the surf and the food.
Yeah.
But we would also like to have the stand-up comedy circuit, and I'm trying to work that out also.
I think you've done a beautiful thing, and I will be your friend for life now.
Yes, we are.
And it's beautiful that you're being like blood brothers with me and giving me the open invitation to come back to your festival whenever. And I can't wait to come back to Portugal.
I would like you to come back.
First of all, it was such a relief to come here and find out that not everyone in Portugal has an unusually large Adam's apple like Cristiano Ronaldo. I thought everybody here would have crazy big Adam's apples.
I'm going to start taking pictures of the Portuguese with large Adam apples and sending them to you to prove you there are others, you know?
So in the little time we have left, and I applaud you what you're doing, and I
Thank you.
I really from the bottom of my heart thank you for treating me like a king and showing me respect, and I was very happy to knock the ball out of the fucking park on that big theater show.
Yeah.
Sada Bendiera.
Yeah.
And you did a very beautiful thing. You took me. So you're actually from a town called Braga,
Yeah.
and your favorite soccer team, football, is Braga.
Yes.
So you took me last night with Barry Ferns to go see Braga, and you brought your son, and your father lives in Braga. So it was really kind of beautiful being with 3 generations
Yes.
of Xaras.
Yeah.
And that's your family team.
My father is not Xara, it's my mother. But anyway.
You take the mother's name?
Yeah, we take both. But I used my mother's name because it's
What
more
kind of weird
it's more,
Portuguese
it's more
shit is
unusual.
that?
Because the name Xara is more unusual. My father is Pereira. It's a more common name.
Ah.
So I use Xara because it's a special name.
Okay then. Any name with an X in it is cool for me. But the stadium was really cool. So it's an old granite quarry.
Yeah.
Where they built the stadium.
Yes.
And it's this modern new stadium, well, like 10 years old. That's modern.
Yeah.
And it's built into the granite quarry.
Yeah.
And the design of this stadium is so cool. You pointed out to me that the 2 overhanging roofs catch the rainwater.
Yeah.
And they're these big, like, kind of drain aqueducts where the rain runs, and it collects the rainwater from the roof, and that's what they water the field with.
Yes. Yes.
Pretty genius.
It is. It is.
And Portugal is the #1 country for renewable energies.
In aeolic energies, wind energy.
For all renewable. I
Yeah.
think that's the most proud thing to be.
Yeah, the sun and the wind are the main. We are now starting to use the sea energy, you know, like the waves, the tides energy, you know.
Nice.
But in what concerns, you saw a lot of windmills.
Yeah.
We call them windmills also
Yes.
to generate energy.
Yeah, and turbine, those fancy new ones that.
Yeah, the turbines.
Yeah.
But the main provider of energy are still the dicks, you know, not dicks.
The dicks near the bitches?
Sorry, my accent sometimes can.
No, I love it. Like when you say beaches, it sounds like
Yeah,
bitches.
yeah.
So you mean dykes.
Dykes, the dykes,
The
right?
dykes.
The dykes.
The dicks near the bitches.
This was a funny moment, wasn't it? Yeah. It's a question of accent, man.
It's just a
I love the way you say filha da puta, so.
sensual.
Filha da puta sensual, yeah.
So we're gonna have to go. It's
Yeah.
interesting. This is my last day in Portugal.
Yeah.
The Bonello, that election in Brazil.
Bolsonaro.
That election is in Brazil. Yesterday, Brett Kavanaugh got. The Republicans decided to ignore the
Yeah.
voice of women and
Made
push
my-
this fucking guy through. It's an interesting time in history right now.
It is.
That we're living through.
Made my joke about Trump about that yesterday when I came home. I saw he
What was the joke you made?
I said that now the Supreme Court of the United States is so similar to Donald Trump, I'm afraid they are going to start tweeting the sentences.
That's funny. That's a good joke.
Yeah.
I think this will be a real splitting point in America. I think it's going to be many years until we recover, and I think probably this is the time when people should. I mean, punk rock is really going to flourish now,
Yeah.
and it's the time of protest and the time of revolution art,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we should probably just divide up the country
Mm-hmm.
because you got these two groups of people. The one want to be the people of rules and no rights for women, and the hardline party of the rich and the wealthy
Mm-hmm.
that protects them from its accountability. Like rich people are just not accountable, and there's this big protective force field around them, and now they really have it with the Supreme Court and like corporation rights, and corporations are people. They can donate as much as they want to political parties. And then you got the other half of the population that's into human rights and, women's rights and gay rights and welcoming immigrants. That's the lefty socialist in me speaking.
Yeah.
I just don't see America really healing anytime soon.
Yeah.
From this fucking wound that's happening.
I think you lost that chance when you didn't choose Bernie Sanders to be the Democratic candidate.
Yeah.
But there's one thing people need to retain, and we've talked a bit about this, and you talked to Barry Ferns about that also, I heard you, which is we have to be aware that this is something that is being somehow planned all over the world by Russia. They are doing something with the social media and things like that, and it's a new era for time control, for mind control, and we have to be aware of that because they are starting to play us like puppets.
Yeah.
To really play us like puppets, and we don't. Everything always looks worse when we imagine it, right? But the truth is that we already had in our history 2 or 3 times when the world almost ended, when things could have gone really, really, really the wrong way. So we need to use good sense and try to prevent things before they happened, not being radicalized anymore,
Yeah.
So I don't know what is the solution. I know that there is probably one.
I don't think people even realize what's happening. Like you were saying, it's all mind controlled now. And like Facebook, you can have images flashed at you. I was talking to Barry about this at dinner the other night. That, all these things like during the 2016 election that like the Pope endorsed Trump, which wasn't true. Mm-hmm. Hillary's pedophile ring run out of a pizza parlor in Maryland or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Just crazy stories that people latch onto. And everybody hates each other now.
Yeah. In Brazil, it's even worse, I'm afraid that I haven't seen the news today, but I'm afraid that there might be riots and things like that today. Because the I don't know, the décalage, what do you call when there's a big confrontation between two opposite sides, like
confrontation?
But isn't
clashes?
Yeah, a clash, right? Like a huge clash in Brazilian society, even worse than in America nowadays. Yeah.
Wow.
And Brazil is a very big country, you know, it's probably the most important country in South America. So if something happens there, it will have consequences in other countries.
Right. Wow. Okay. So right now, Porto is
Yeah,
playing a very important match.
yeah, if they win, they pass Braga.
Who are they? Oh, okay. So who are they playing?
Benfica, the other, they are the two most important teams. Benfica has the most titles. Porto is the second team with more titles. Last year, Porto was the champion. 2 years ago, Benfica were the champions. And now, today, if any of them wins, they'll pass Braga and stay in the first place. So I hope it's a tie.
Okay.
So they still remain below us.
So just you have a friend who has this Airbnb apartment where I'm staying,
Yeah.
and you got him to
And his name
put-
is Jesus.
Jesus. Jesus has always been good to me.
Yeah.
And his family's wonderful people. They have this little restaurant down below on the other side of that ancient cobble street.
Yeah.
And I'm staying at number 10 Rue. Is it Rue here? What do you call a street?
Rua.
Rua Thomas Gonzaga Street.
Yeah.
So number 10 Thomas Gonzaga Street. This is the apartment where I've been staying
Yes.
all week. My first time in Portugal. They've been absolutely wonderful. He's invited me to come down and watch the Porto
Yes.
game with him. I know you want me to be a Braga fan. I've got my scarf that you bought me. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So before we wrap this up, what do you want the rest of the world to know about Portugal?
That we are a country open to the world, but that we have our own identity, which is quite interesting, and I'm pretty sure everybody will love to come here because we are still genuine, which is something is disappearing in other Western countries, you know. We also have some of the American culture, of pop culture, but there are too many things that are still genuine, without closing the door to what comes from foreign countries, you know. It's a really cool country. It's people are good. People are the best thing in Portugal, probably.
I love it. And what do you want the rest of the world to know about Rui Xara?
Well, that I'm a Portuguese comedian trying to do my way here, and that now, since you have come here and we have been talking, I'll probably try to one day do a gig in LA in English, because it's part of my imaginary, you know, like I imagine myself with you, I told you that, in Sunset Boulevard, smoking some weed and having a beer and talking about how good Portugal is and enjoying California. California is part of my, you know, I told you my favorite band ever was The Doors, and Venice Beach is on my head ever since, and I hope someday I'll go there and then, I don't know, do a small bit in one of the comedy clubs, maybe. I
Cool.
don't know.
There's a great club in Venice Beach. Every Wednesday they do comedy. It's called the Venice Underground.
Okay.
And it's great history because it used to be a speakeasy during the Prohibition.
Okay.
So it's this old bar in the basement. That's where they do the comedy. So it
Sounds
used to
good.
be like a secret entrance to get into the thing. Now there's a bar upstairs and then you go in the basement. But Charlie Chaplin hung out there
Mm-hmm.
in like the in the 20s, and Jim Morrison hung out there.
Okay.
And then also one of my favorite bands, Jane's Addiction, used to play
Yeah,
there
I like
in the
Jane's Addiction.
90s.
Yeah.
So Chaplin, Jim Morrison, and Jane's Addiction, and they do comedy every Wednesday. It's a really, really cool
More
gig.
than enough for me, man.
More than cool. Really cool gig. Yeah, man. Thank you so much, my brother. And
thank you
this-
too, Tom. Thank you.
I'm happy that you know, Portugal lives in my heart now. In closing, is there any words of wisdom or advice that you have for the people of the earth?
I'll just tell the same thing I told you, you know. The greatest thing of all this for me is to learn about new places, about new ways of thinking, of being. I hope the last thing I do before I die is to learn some new thing. That's what I hope.
I love it.
Okay.
And I love you.
And I love you too, Tom.
All right, my brother. Respect.
Thank you very much, Tom Rhodes.
Thank you very much, Rui Xara. Long may you run, brother. Long may you run. How do you say that in Portuguese?
Que vivas muitos anos. Que vivas muitos anos.
Long may you run, brother.
Okay.
All right. Shalom, amigo.
Shalom.
Tom Rhodes, you're a funny man. Tom Rhodes, you're an international comedian. Tom Rhodes, karate kick, baby, oh yeah. Tom Rhodes, you're a groovy dude. You go all around the world, telling jokes to all of the people. You are an international comedian. You're funny to everybody in every single country in the world. Tom Rhodes, I like you very much. I think you're talented and very wonderful. Tom Rhodes, you're the best guy in the world. I wanna be your friend, you should call me sometime. Here is my phone number, 603-644-0048. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tom Rhodes, you're an international comedic sensation. Tom Rhodes, I like to listen to your podcast. Tom Rhodes, you're the best man to ever walk on the earth.